We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
And now New Galaxy Broadcasting presents Inalienable and Free, Voice of the Coalition, a program addressing the grave challenges to human and citizen rights in America and the rest of the world. How can we, the people of Earth, take back the power and privileges granted to us by God and addressed so significantly in the Declaration of Independence? Our rights are inalienable, that is, given by God and incapable of being taken away from or given by another. These rights are the basis of liberty, the foundation of all life and happiness. The Coalition of Planetary Empowerment is an organization designed to give its members tools and information to empower them personally, in relationships and in business and employment, but also to give them a voice and the ability to help transform political and corporate governance to support the true needs and desires of people throughout the world. Inalienable and Free focuses on the need for government and corporate business interests to be responsive to the will and desire of their constituents and consumer shareholders. This is Johnny Bluestar, host of Inalienable and Free, and today we have an amazing guest, Consolee Nishimwe, a survivor of the Rwanda genocide and author of a book, Tested to the Limit, a genocide survivor's story of pain, resilience, and hope. Hi, Consolee. How are you doing?
Hi, Johnny. How are you? Thank you so much for inviting me here.
I am very happy, particularly happy because I feel like the work that you're doing after reading your book and seeing a little bit about your background is so critical. It's so critical in a world where people are largely asleep, even very nice people in this country and other countries, to what's really going on in the world. A lot of it is because major media does not really inform you anymore. And I'm sure that what happened in Rwanda in 1994 did not get the kind of press it deserved. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's correct. And not so many people knew what was happening in 1994. I met so many people. I spoke to a lot of people who didn't know. So there was no really worldwide coverage about what was happening there. So I didn't know about it. I didn't know until I started learning after people didn't know.
Well, am I correct in thinking that more people knew about the Rwanda hotel movie than they did about the actual massacre?
Yeah, people learn much from the Hotel Rwanda. Yeah, that's actually, that's correct because they didn't know much about what was the reality. As you know, Hotel Rwanda, it's more about Hollywood. It's not enough, what was happening, the reality of what was happening at that time. But at least, a lot of people want to learn what was happening there. So,
see, I write screenplays and fiction too. And I think that fiction sometimes is important and sometimes it manages to get ahead of the irresponsible media that we have. And so people are somehow awakened to things that they never even thought about for a second because it's never on the news.
Right.
Well, your book is, it's not an easy book to read, but it is a book that I think is extremely important. Right. So tell us about how and why you started to write Tested to the Limit, genocide survivor's story of pain, resilience, and hope.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate you for having me to share my journey of how I was able to write my story. As you've seen, I was very young. I was a teenager. So as you can imagine, being a teenager, you were the most happiest child. And, the things I've seen, it was really hard for me to even, record everything. And it was not something easy for me to do. But I'm so grateful that I allowed myself to go through that journey because it became therapy for me. So I don't think I would have been able to even be able to, appreciate life more than I appreciate now if I didn't go through that journey of really, recording everything and go back, even though it was difficult. So, but it took me a long time, more than 15 years to be able to get there. So, yeah.
Well, what was interesting to me is that at one point you encountered Wayne Dyer. And the reason I say that is that the Coalition for Planetary Empowerment, this organization that I'm creating to empower people around the world, is dedicated to him.
Yeah.
And so he had perhaps a less direct but very powerful influence in my life. Just before we start talking more about the book, tell us something about his encounter with you.
Yeah, thank you very much for mentioning that. Dr. Wayne Dyer really has become one of the most amazing, and, he has impacted so many people's lives, including you. So
yes.
I'm happy, we're able to talk about him. I met him because he actually made my cousin first, he helped to write a book, her memoir about how she survived the genocide. It's called Left to Tell. So that's how I was able to meet him. And even the way they met is incredible. She went to his book signing, and that's how they were able to meet. So, and when we met, I used to go to events where he was speaking. And one time, and somehow he was a very kind person who used to really be kind, want to know your story, want to speak to you. Very, a very kind person. So, and I remember when he learned about my story. And one time, I remember when I was very sick in a hospital, and he called me, and he was very nice and comforted me, and his words of comfort really remained with me, and I will never forget that. And I used to meet him a lot, and he would just comfort me, and I really appreciate him a lot for being in my life. I feel like he's became almost one of my spiritual father I've had.
He's part of your family. Yes.
He's part of my family, so we love him a lot.
Well, I think his idea was that if we could only as collectively become conscious one by one, we would be able to change the world and to connect with what he called Source or God. And that was the primary thing that I realized, that in order to manifest what we want, we have to connect with Source. We have to experience Source.
Right.
And so what I do talk about in the coalition is that we need to experience Source, which will bring the personal desires, but also collectively, which will bring world peace, which is really why I think what your life is all about. It's to bring peace to the world by exposing, to some extent, unfortunately, in order to bring someone to true awareness of something good, sometimes you have to penetrate what's really bad.
Yeah.
And in 1994, something began to happen in Rwanda. But I wanted to ask you before that about the Tutsis and the Hutus. How much of an understanding do you have, or is there, about the sort of history of these tribes?
Yeah, for the people who don't know about it, so of course for me, I grew up in that environment where I knew that I was a Tutsi. So in the country, at that time before the colony, the Belgians, and before it was Germans who came in the country, and then after, if you were Hutu, if you were Tutsi, that means you had more cows. If you were Hutu, then you have less. And then if you were Twa. So it was more about what you have, and then you move from one class to another. So, and people knew how to move from one class to another. So it was more, it wasn't like ethnic groups until the Belgians came in the country, and they had to, make these two groups who have been living together in peace, and divide them into ethnic groups. And then
really? In other words, they weren't really tribes.
Yeah, it wasn't really. It was more about social classes. And then until the Belgians decided to do what they call divide and conquer. So and then they made Hutu the majority and the Tutsis the minority. So that's how they left these two groups, seeing them as different, and they measured, our features, our bodies and noses, and they say if you are Tutsi, you are tall, with a long nose, or your tone, your skin, and they made actually people think they are different, and they were not different. So
what year was that? Approximately what time was that when they did that?
They did that in 19 because they left in 1959. So that means it was in the midst of 1900. So yeah, that's when.
Because that's kind of a Nazi thing, going into the features of people to decide who's superior and who's inferior. Exactly,
because they wanted it to have one of them on their side, so to use them and make them believe that they're the other group is not good as them. So they made sure that they had Hutus, against the Tutsis. So that's how they left the country. The Hutus majority at that time who were in the power. They left the Hutus in the power at that time because they were ruling the country. So at the time they left, the Hutus were already, committing crimes against the Tutsis, and Tutsis started going in exile because they were being massacred since 1959. So that's why there were so many Tutsis were in exile. So those who remained in the country. So that's how I was born, from my, family, my ancestors who remained in the country. So, and that's how we were Tutsis. And then what they did, they issued identity cards before they left. So, and then if you are Tutsi, and then they show you, they give you identity cards that you are Tutsi, and then you are Hutu. So, and for someone who wants to know, you can go online and you will see those IDs, the ID cards, where they mention you are Hutu and Tutsi. So, and those measurements they were doing, you can see that, you can read it. So it was horrible. So that's how they were able to, to know whether you are Tutsi and Hutu now.
So they were responsible in a way for the genocide. Yeah.
They were responsible, and they left, and then a mess was already made. So, and the administrations that was in the Hutu power, they continued all these ideology that was already, made by the Belgians when they left the country. So, yeah. So that's how the Hutus majority kept going on. Instead of stopping what happened and realizing it was wrong, actually they continued, doing the worst and make it worse until they wanted to, exterminate the minority Tutsis. So that's how the genocide was planned.
Well, that is really interesting. We're going to take a brief break, and we'll be right back.
Yeah, thank you.
This is Johnny Bluestar, CEO of New Galaxy Enterprises, a media content development company. If you are an author and want your novel adapted to the screen or to the new high-quality TV series developed by Amazon, Hulu, and Netflix, for example, I probably can help. My company, New Galaxy Enterprises, is a media content company, and I've worked on a number of adaptations, including a dramatic version of ventriloquist Paul Winchell's autobiography, an adaptation of a novel co-authored by myself and a Korean War veteran, an historical account of the Mexican art revolution, a science fiction screenplay based on a fictional novel account of fallen angels, and many other proprietary and client-based projects. We want our projects to be with high-quality potential and positive intent. To learn more about New Galaxy, see samples of our work, or talk to us about your project, please go to www.newgalaxyenterprises.com and fill out the contact form.
Boots in Manhattan is a coming-of-age novel by Ray Boylan and Johnny Bluestar. It is about a young Tom Boots Raymond who grows up in New York in the 1940s, who was a member of a street gang.
My friends and I were about to start our own game of stickball when Rabbit Lacey, the head of the Rattlers, came up to us and tried to move in on our game. We were called dwarves, the youngest members of this stupid gang.
Hey, Kevin, I need you to get some gloves and some stuff I left at my place.
No, this is our game.
Hey, are you my good little dwarf or what?
You've been calling me a dwarf since I was 6. We're not your personal slaves, pal.
Hey, what is this? A dwarf rebellion? All right, big guy, we ditched the dwarf thing. We make you guys regular rattlers.
No, it's too late.
He looked at Jay and me. We looked away. Rabbit was now angry, and he pushed Kevin hard with the palms of his hand. Kevin tried to ram him in the stomach, but he stepped aside, throwing Kevin into the curb where he fell to the ground, bleeding profusely at the knee. Still, he managed to get up.
My street.
Kevin shouted at Rabbit, pointing at him with an angry index finger.
Find out more by Googling Boots in Manhattan, a 1940s coming-of-age novel, part 1 of the novel series The Foot Soldier by Ray Boylan and Johnny Bluestar. Google with the words Boots in Manhattan, Ray Johnny Kindle. That's Boots in Manhattan, Ray Johnny Kindle.
George Santayana wrote a poem called In the Midst of Battle, There is Room for Thoughts of Love. And this is true of Consolee's book, Tested to the Limit. In the middle of all this horror, the love showed in her family and to them by various people in their world is a tribute to both love and courage. Here is a song about real love's endurance. It is called Love Never Withers. Music was composed and played by Edgar Ahrens and sung by Patricia Welch. I wrote the lyrics.
That it stole from my eyes. I remember that day when the wind swept away life's dear comfort and warmth on that bitter autumn day.
So we're back. Consolee, I want you to begin something about your story now. Now we have some background. When did it actually start?
The genocide started actually in April 6 when after the former president plane shut down. And they used it as a way that of saying Tutsis, killed him, but which was not true because a genocide was already planned and they were already starting to murder Tutsis everywhere. So that's how the genocide actually immediately everywhere throughout the country. The majority Hutus already who were being, already everywhere. The incitement of, hatred, which was used through the radio station, actually that was also part of the, inciting the hatred to tell the Hutus around the country that they must murder their neighbors, Tutsis. So everywhere, every corner of the country, Tutsis were being murdered everywhere. So
was the president a Tutsi?
Pardon?
The man who was plane crash, was he a Tutsi?
No, he was a Hutu. Yeah.
Oh, he was a Hutu. Was he against the Tutsis or was he
Because he was part of the government that was actually persecuting the Tutsis. But at that time, when the plane shut down, he was coming from the peace accord in a neighboring country to sign between the Tutsis who were in exile, so that they can come back in the country. So the Tutsis were in exile. They were asking to come back and live in their own country. And there were peace, happening in Tanzania, Arusha, in a neighboring country. So when he was coming back, because of mostly they say the Hutus who were against it, actually they said they are the ones who shut down his plane because they were realizing he was going to change his mind.
I see.
Mm-hmm, yeah. And they shot his plane, and he was along with our neighboring president Burundi, who was at that time in the plane with him. So they shot his plane while he was landing at the airport. So, and immediately they started now, killing the Tutsis everywhere. So throughout the country.
So for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
what were the first moments where you realized something was now a little bit different and really terribly wrong?
You mean even from the beginning, or
no? I mean when the actual after the plane crashed and things started to get really personal in your life. What was the first sign of it before the actual confrontation with all this murder and horror?
Yeah, for me, because of course I was a teenager myself, everything I say is about, the eyes of a teenager, what I was seeing. So immediately, of course, where we lived, you could tell everywhere Tutsis, because even before the plane shut down, and so we were not even in our homes. Most of the time, there were so many disruptions because of how the Tutsis, sometimes you hear someone was killed in one part of the country. Tutsis were always being, killed somehow, but not so many because of, what the Hutus were. The hatred was really intense even before the president shut down. So, yeah, so the Tutsis were being targeted everywhere. So I remember, because where we were at that time, because we were not home, we were at that time the neighbor. So, and I realized when my parents actually asked me to go to buy some bread. I remember when I realized on the street everything changed. So that's when I realized that, things are so bad, seeing a soldier when you're young, you've never seen many soldiers. So, and it was scary. And I remember when I came back home, that's when I realized that people were, and then also realizing that there were so many Tutsis who were coming from the villages, many different hills coming to the communal office. So, and that's when I realized that things were going to get bad. So it was scary to see now people leaving their homes and you don't know where to go. You're just starting, to realize it. And then at the same time, people thought, even my parents were thinking we're going back home. Maybe things will get better, we go back home, but never imagined that we'll be spending 3 months in hiding. So, yeah.
Yes.
And many people being murdered everywhere, and the things we've seen during the 3 months. So we never thought it would happen that way, the way it happened in a short period of time.
So I think that it says here in your book,
Mm-hmm.
It was April 15th, and around 5 a.m. that morning, we found ourselves in the middle of some sorghum plantations near the Musogoro River, hoping to move towards the area where we lived. So you had left at this time, and you were going to go back, but you were you knew there was something wrong at this point, right?
Yeah, I remember, that moment when we were sitting in the middle of sorghum plantations. It was one of the terrifying times I've had in the early times, before when the genocide began. So that's when I felt really the fear that I probably have never had any other, that was the beginning of really being afraid, really being afraid of what was happening and to see the face of my dad and all of us there. So it was very tough. It was very tough.
Your father was obviously a really nice person, right? He was a teacher along with your mother.
Yes. Yeah. They used to be together since I was young, and they were always together. So, yeah.
What I noticed in your book was that after he was killed, and you were with your siblings
Mm-hmm.
for a while anyway, that people knew him and knew your mother. And a lot of those people really refused to help when you were in mortal danger.
Yeah, that's the reason why it shows you when you teach hatred in people and people really believe in what they are being taught. So because of many decades, people have been taught how Tutsis are bad and for no reason, just being Tutsis. And even now during the genocide, the people who were considered for us, our neighbors and friends and the people that you would never imagine would do any horrible thing to you. These are the people who refused to help during the genocide. And it was very, very hard to see people's hearts change immediately, just simply because we're Tutsi and for no other reason. So it was tough. It was really hard.
It's a kind of programming.
It was frustrating because people have been taught this hatred, hatred many years, many decades. So, and they believed it. So it was very, it shows you how well taught these people were being taught. So, to hate just their neighbors. So it was horrible. Yeah.
My family, a lot of them were killed in Poland, some in concentration camps and some in Warsaw Ghetto. And but I never was there. And when I read about it, it was horrible because I read about it probably when I was in 6th grade. And it always made me wonder, like, why have I survived all this? So I know that's part of the problem that people had there, right? The survivors.
Yeah. And that's it. I always have a conversation with fellow survivors, and even all of us, you always think why, you survived and your father died, who was an amazing person, or someone else, your siblings, and now you find yourself alive. It's like a survival guilt. Sometimes many of the survivors have. So it's hard to see yourself, and because there's nothing, and at the same time, one thing I've learned is that now I'm here to tell what happened, and that's why I'm here. I'm alive. So I survived to be able to, to tell what happened. So, and not because it's anything I did to be able to survive. It's just because I'm here. So I'm able to, to share what happened. So at least, be a voice for those who are not here. So,
well, you, one of the things that did happen throughout this story is that certain people did help you. And I think that some of these people might be credited in saving some of your family, not all of it. Unfortunately, you were faced with a situation where people virtually held you in hostage physically, and then could do terrible things like they did to your brothers.
Yeah, no, and it's really also, even though, you've been through the painful experiences where you met people who are so horrible to you, but it's good also to recognize those who have been, helpful to you. And the reason why I survived, because there's someone who have helped. So, and it's good to recognize those who, decided not to go in the wrong path and just help the people who are like them, the human beings, they're seeing us as human beings like them. And I think it also, it's a way of teaching people, if you see something horrible like a genocide happening, don't go in the same route like the wrong people. Just be kind and just, do the right thing. So, and that's one of the main reasons I shared also those who have been so, helpful to us. And I'm not the only person. Survivors really have been also sharing those who have been able to be supportive of them and helpful in hiding them. So it's important to do that too.
Well, we're going to take a break now. We'll be right back. My company, New Galaxy Enterprises, is a California corporation specializing in the creation of media and promotional content. We are focused on original, innovative projects that are good for humanity. These projects could be nonfiction books or novels, fictional screenplays or documentary content, websites and website content, commercial advertising content for print, audio, or video products on the internet, television, or radio, musical scores for advertising, television, or film, video, audio editing, etc. We want to promote products and projects that support the environment, encourage a healthy experience in living, developing, nurturing, and useful technology, and offering platforms for positive, socially constructive entertainment or informative, transformative media. Our experience in creating a variety of products like this is rather vast, and we offer client-based and collaborative products, as well as the opportunity of active investors to join us in the creation and promotion of proprietary products, some of which are in latter stages of development. For more information, go to www.newgalaxyenterprises.com. That's www.newgalaxyenterprises.com. If you're interested in talking to us, just fill out the contact sheet and we will get back with you. Are you confused about so much information on health issues? Do you find it hard to trust the sources of conflicting advice? Try Dr. Rodier's newsletters and blogs based on the latest information published in the best medical and nutritional journals. There's no charge for subscribing. Just log on to HugoRodier.com. That's HugoRodier.com to do so, or to download Dr. Rodier's latest publications. This is a song by singer-songwriter Stephanie Slevin, letting us know what goes around comes around.
What goes around comes right back around, but that's not true for me. They say what goes around comes right back around, and that it comes in threes. Please bring me rest, bring me some peace. Please knock on my door, and I promise I'll ask for nothing forever, evermore. And step into the light. Close your eyes, embrace me, feel tomorrow's end of night. Ask me for forgiveness, and I will see it done. I know you think that all is lost, and the battle they have won. You do not see so clearly.
Hi, Consolee. Thank you for being with us again. And we have been dealing with what sort of an amazing book that you wrote, Tested to the Limit. And the reason this book is so amazing is that I found myself actually almost there. Now, that wasn't the nicest place to be, but it did give me a certain picture of something that I've never, even although I've read a lot of books about like the Nazis and things and what happened, were terrible. This brought me right into the middle of Rwanda while this was going on. So I think it's a very good book to read, because if people really want to wake up, they should know what's going on in the world. And this was in 1994, and there are things going on like it right now. One of the questions I have is about, I know that women were particularly mistreated during this time, including yourself, and maybe you could explain what happened there and how people reacted to it and how they recovered if they managed to.
And like many people know, during the genocide, even during the conflicts, there are so many horrible things happening, including rape, which is used as a weapon in most cases. So, and even in Rwanda, that was used as a weapon. And now we found that there are even survivors. We have almost more than 250 women survivors who were raped during the genocide. So, and now many of them live with HIV. Others already have had kids from rape who are now 25 years and many other consequences because of that. So, and now becoming one of them. And I realized, living with the consequences because of that. So I decided to share that painful part, which was not easy to even share and talk about. Not so many women were able to share this experience, what happened to them. And I became one of the first people to actually write what happened to me. So, and I realized that because of sharing that painful experience of me being a teenager raped and living with HIV, I realized that it has helped also so many survivors to want to be able to share that. And I show them how really therapeutic for me it was, and to be able to, because I want to be happy. I just want to be able to a life where I can be able to be able to help my fellow survivors, and even be able to make sure that I am I'm a voice for those who cannot speak for themselves. I share that painful part because of that main reason. So, yeah.
What would you say is the, for people in general, male and female, who survive this, is there a sort of a picture of them, a profile you might paint of them? Is there anything, characteristics they have in common?
With the survivors, the picture I'll have with the survivors in Rwanda, because of how extreme the genocide was. Let me give you maybe a little background of how survivors are. So you find there are few survivors who have parents. At least one parent survived, like myself. So there are survivors who lost the entire families, and they've lost everything. So now, the way we are as a small community of survivors, because of some of us have at least one parent survive, others have lost, they are disabled, they lost the entire families, others have all kinds of different consequences. So we decided after the genocide, even in school, to become almost like a family. So we created organization. So organization in high school and also after school, so where survivors can, help each other, and now, so because of that reason, that's why survivors were able at least to function all these years, 25 years later, so to be able to support each other. But at the same time, we still suffer from the consequences, because especially when it comes to psychological issues, trauma is still really, even though it's 25 years later, most of them are still suffering with the trauma. So yeah, it's something that really is not going to go anywhere. So we realize even kids who were born after the genocide, especially born from survivors, some of them are inherited with intergenerational trauma. So it's something that is starting to happen also, and hopefully maybe this will, we are trying the best we could to be able to maybe do therapy, and which is something many of them have never done much. So, and it's something that is being emphasized now. So, because we realize trauma, it's really something that many of them are still struggling. But at the same time, survivors are really resilient. They have been able to, some of them to be able to live well, even though being able to create a new life. And it was not easy, but some of them have been able to really do well in life.
So what do you think we can do as people of this planet to try and actually contain this monstrous practice?
Yeah, the people living on we realize that genocide really can happen anywhere. So we've seen it like it happened during the Holocaust and then also Rwanda and after many decades after that. So, and it's still happening now. So, and I think as the people now, the hatred, the hate is one of the things that is really being spread out now, being used on social media and many other different platforms where people can really, incite their hateful language towards other human beings. And I think it's important also to educate the younger generation to be aware and know that what happened, especially what happened in the past, to be a lesson to them, and also educate them about how the danger of hateful language and to be able to avoid really being associate themselves in that kind of way and be aware so that we educating people. I think education is important, educating people. And I think that's a way of helping preventing such thing from keep happening again. So at least when we say never again, it becomes a reality now. So
well, that's good. Yes.
Instead of a slogan, so it becomes a reality. So
well, you have the problem that that sometimes, as somebody who's brought up Jewish in the beginning, anyway, when I see some of the ways that the Palestinians have been persecuted, which reminds me very much of the way the Nazis were persecuting the Jews, I realize that how much you have to be on guard as a country to prevent that hate can spring up anywhere. I mean, I see it springing up in this country big time.
Yeah.
What's interesting to me is that almost all, if not all, of the terrorist types of events that occurred here after 9/11 occurred because people who were Americans or were in this country already were converted to follow ISIS. I do think that the people in media have a responsibility for trying to prevent it, and I think that some of them are to some extent, but it's certainly not. Mainstream media is divided, and it's not really enough at all. Because you can't just talk about it. You have to be in favor of government policies which actually work.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So tell us how we can people who are interested can get your book.
The book is available on Amazon. So for those who are able to look on Amazon, you can find it on Amazon, and also barnesandnoble.com, and also Balboa Press, balboapress.com.
Now, your book was published by Hayes House, is that correct?
A division of Hay House. It's called Balboa Press. It's a
division. Yes, I've heard of it. I forgot about that. Yes. Mm-hmm. I took a writer's workshop there about 2 years ago.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah, they are very good.
And, they're doing their best to continue Wayne Dyer's teachings, I believe.
Yeah.
If people go to, are a member of LinkedIn, they'll be able to go to the Wayne Dyer Experience and join for free and discuss his teachings. Mm-hmm. And, I'd like to see you show up sometime. That would be nice.
Right. Yeah.
Because you have kind of a first-person connection. I don't follow Wayne Dyer exclusively, and I don't think Wayne Dyer followed any one person exclusively. He acquired certain truths, and he tried to spread them through his writings and through his speaking. Mm-hmm. And I think that kind of speaking is very important. Do you do much speaking now?
Yeah, I do much speaking. I try to speak to young people in schools, especially high schools and middle schools and colleges and universities. So, and different organizations. Wherever I'm invited, I go. And also, I work a lot with the museums of Holocaust museums. So,
you do?
Yeah, like a Museum of Jewish Heritage here in New York City. So we work a lot together. So, and also in talking to young people and also the teachers, especially in the summer. I work almost in the whole summer with them. So every year I've been really working with them a lot. So with this, so we collaborate a lot because they are teaching about the genocide on Rwanda genocide. So, and along with the Holocaust and many other genocides. So I've been really collaborating a lot with them on Rwanda side. So
if someone or from some organization wants to get a hold of you, how would they do that so that you could speak to them?
I try to put my my email on my LinkedIn and because I realize people look a lot on social media more than I get to websites. So I try to put on my social medias where I can be, how you can reach out to me. So that's how I get reached out to most of the time. So, but I'm going to have my website again. So maybe I guess it will be another way for those who would check the website to be able to see that.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you so much for coming here. And
thank you.
I think we'll be talking more, will we not?
Yeah, we will. Absolutely. And I'll be really happy to join you anytime, whenever you want me to, really, even if you have any other guests to just talk about anything. So I'll be happy to join you. So thank you.
That's great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
We'll be in touch. You take care.
Take care. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
This is Johnny Bluestar, host of Inalienable and Free, the Voice of the Coalition, a program devoted to the development of the Coalition for Planetary Empowerment. The Coalition is a unique project designed to empower its members both individually and collectively. Besides individual empowerment, its broader focus is on the restoration, protection, and enhancement of citizen and human rights throughout the world through the aid of its members. As this project is centered in the United States, our first task is to create a website and social network infrastructure to promote collective efforts to take back our rightful control as citizens over our government as designed by our founding fathers. Although we must begin with a social network restricted to United States citizens, the organization will also host a global dialogue for the discussion of human rights by citizens of democratic nations throughout the world. If you're interested, please check us out in the GoFundMe.com website, entering in the search field the Coalition for Planetary Empowerment. That is, go to GoFundMe.com and enter in the search field the Coalition for Planetary Empowerment. We end with a ballad that expresses the hope of all our efforts on this program, Inalienable and Free, Voice of the Coalition. It also expresses the conviction of extraordinary people like Consolee Nishimwe, who has honored us with her presence today.